This week, the Obama administration unveiled their Clean Power Plan, which aims to put more emphasis on solar and other forms of renewable energy, wind energy, things like that, to reach fairly aggressive carbon emission goals. By 2030, the plan is expected to slash the carbon footprint of the nation's power sector by 32% below 2005 levels, a more rigorous target than the 30% reduction outlined in a draft version of the rules released last summer. So between last summer and this summer, slightly more aggressive goals, and even 2% when you're talking about the carbon output of an entire nation, one of the most outputtiest nations in the planet. That is a large addition. Why don't we bring up this chart? You're going to see some of the projected changes in carbon emissions. The dotted blue line is if we just continue with the current policies. You see it steadily going up, slowly but surely, with each one of those horizontal straight lines representing 1 billion metric tons of emissions, which is scary. And then you're seeing over time the lowering of the greenhouse gas emissions with this new plan that they're going to be putting into effect.
No, John, all this data comes from scientists, and
So it's suspect.
Super liars.
Exactly. They're in it for the money, largely in the bag for, yeah.
They became scientists and went to school and got their doctorates and all that stuff just because they wanted to be able to lie about their science so they could make money.
They like the lying. They like the great pay that they get. And there was a lot of women that were interested in them in college.
Yes, that's right.
So you can't trust what they say.
So they were either going to go, should I go Wall Street or climate research?
So I look into, carbon emissions. So take what you will from that chart. But we do also know a little bit about how they're going to actually reach these goals. The details are still sketchy a little bit, but we do know the EPA is going to be setting emissions goals, different emissions goals for 47 different states. The reason it's 47 and not 50 is that Alaska and Hawaii, they have slightly different grid configurations that are going to require a little bit more time to figure out exactly what the goals should be. And DC and Vermont, I believe it is, don't have any fossil fuel power plants, which seems absurd. I don't know how that's possible, but apparently it is possible, so they don't have any goals set for them. But
I think Vermont runs on angel farts. That's what I understand.
And not that religious of a state, so it's impressive that they're able to. They don't have a lot of power needs, I guess.
They're very clean.
Very clean, the farts. So different goals for 47 different states, flexibility in terms of how the states are going to reach those goals. But we do know that some version of a carbon, the cap and trade plan, will be put into effect if states do not comply with the emissions goals that are being set up by the EPA. And so there's various different ways that they can try to reach the goals, but if they do not, then the federal government will come in with a more stringent plan, details of which are still currently pending. So you're going to see the different levels of carbon emissions and how stringent the expectations are going to be in for different states. You see there, Texas, far and away the biggest emitter. It will have the largest required drop in emissions under this new plan. Some other states like Florida, California as well, also is going to have to cut back. Now, it's no surprise that these are the states that emit the most. They have large industries and large populations which combine to produce a lot of carbon emissions. And those are where the largest drops are going to need to be seen.
I think this is all great. And I think that instead of I look in 50 years, instead of all of Florida being underwater, just 80% of it will.
Yeah.
Honest to God. Honest to God, it's
well, ironically, as if they were underwater, that would help them reach these emissions goals.
It would.
Fewer factories if
John,
they're aquatic.
No, I'm serious. No, I was kidding, but now I'll be serious.
Yes, you're making a serious point.
My point is, though, I mean, the genie's out of the... It's too late. I mean, all they're going to do is slow down the rate of destruction. They're not going to stop the destruction. So the water's going to rise all the way that they've already predicted, and things are going... Most of the people live on where the water is. People are going to have mass migrates. All the bad things that people have been predicting that's going to happen with climate change, under this was still going to happen.
It seems almost assured at this point. And although I think this is a better plan than we would have gotten under a Republican administration, it's certainly not the most ambitious plan you could possibly have. Although we're going to list a couple of the things that Obama has done during his 2 terms to try to help. It might not be enough. And I don't know that it's too late. It may be too late if you're simply trying to cut down on the emissions that we have in the future. But if you have some sort of sequestering capability, some sort of technology to take carbon out of the atmosphere to try to create a net negative, then I think anything is possible in sci-fi, since I don't think currently we have the capability to do this sort of thing. But it's not impossible that we could do that. Perhaps with more federal investment, which is currently not forthcoming.
I'm just saying that I don't want to be a killjoy on this, like Barack
But we're all going to
Obama's-
die.
But it's too late. Climate change is here. We should start preparing for how to deal with it and quit pretending like we can stop it. So it's coming, it's happening. We're never going to stop climate change, even if we stopped right now. Right? If we put no more carbon into the atmosphere right now, we would still be screwed. But because of all the carbon that's in there anyway.
To be fair, though, screwed can mean a lot of different things. There's a gradient of being screwed. You want to be at one end rather than the other. And maybe the ocean levels will still rise, but they won't rise as much as they would if we did nothing. Really fast, I do want to give Obama at least a little bit of credit for some of the policy changes he's made over the past 6 years.
He gets credit.
The reason being that perhaps if people give him credit, he'll be inspired to do more in the future.
Yes.
Here are some of the proposed rules and regulations, some of which are already in effect, by the way, that he's been responsible for. Stricter fuel economy standards for cars and light trucks, continuing to rise till 2025. Stricter fuel economy standards for heavy trucks, buses, and vans, rising to 2027. Proposed CO2 emission standards for any new coal and gas-fired power plants built in the U.S. This rule, when finalized, will make it extremely difficult to build any new coal plants that don't capture and bury their carbon dioxide emissions, which, as they point out, is a technology that is still somewhat being worked on. It's in its infancy.
Is that what they talk about, clean coal? That's clean coal, right? You capture the carbon.
Yes, in theory, you would capture
it. Actually
all of it.
Takes more energy to do that than you're
generating from a power plant.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not a scientist either.
So as they used to
I'm
say,
barely a newsman.
so as Vinny used to say in my neighborhood, turn it over, it defeats its own purpose. That's what they're doing with that.
Exactly.
Okay.
Let's see. Standards to curtail methane leaks from all new oil and gas wells, as well as voluntary partnerships to limit methane from agriculture.
Voluntary.
Voluntary. Various initiatives to curtail hydrofluorocarbons, another potent greenhouse gas used in air conditioners, and refrigeration. All of these good moves, although, as Jimmy points out, all of them possibly inadequate to the immensity of the problem that we are currently facing as a culture, as a country, and as a world.
Yeah, so instead of trying to slow down, so let me make a bad analogy off the top of my head.
Okay.
So let's say that the climate, the Earth is a car, and we're hurling towards a wall. So I say, hey, let's build better seatbelts and airbags. And Barack Obama says, let's see if we can slow the car down.
Yeah. I would say maybe really effective brakes. But what we're basically doing is, let's stop accelerating.
Yeah, let's stop accelerating.
Yeah.
We're not really going to slow down. We're still going to hit the wall at this speed.
But yeah, a little bit.
I say, we're going to hit the wall. Let's build some better seatbelts, airbags, and let's create the cultures that deal with the new reality, which is climate change, floods, new weather patterns.
So you would say like relocating people preemptively
you got to start
from the coast.
preemptively start thinking.
Probably not a bad idea.
Somebody better start thinking about that because it's happening already.
Yeah, yeah. We're still working on the metaphor, but we're going to continue. New drafts will be better.
I
and
like
better.
that metaphor kind of.
It's not that bad.
Thank you
I think
for
there's
a dumb
something
guy
there.
off the top of my head.
Yeah, it's got some gas.